If The View is your favorite show, you might be a little slow. Yes, it's time for
Our View on The View.
very serious music. They love to play the race card because logic for them is hard. On Monday's episode, the ladies tackled the Rittenhouse not guilty verdict, and true to their feckless form, their reaction was something to behold. See for yourself. See for yourselfer.
I can't go and protest now without worrying that some nutcase is going to have a gun, cross the state line, and come and shoot me. That's the problem. That he has opened Pandora's box for some crazies out there.
The only crazies I see around here are those View chicks. Am I right? A sexist would say. But I digress, says the sexist. They talk less sense than me after stealing those pills from Kat's purse. Or heels. It's a peel. Then there's Whoopi.
Even all the excuses in the world does not change the fact.
From the moment Greg Gutfeld stepped onto the live broadcast, you could feel the temperature shift. It was as if the studio lights dimmed just slightly, bracing for impact. The tension between him and the View's panel wasn't just visible, it crackled in the air like static before a storm. Greg didn't bother easing into the conversation. No small talk, no polite preamble. The moment the dialogue veered into political territory, he took his shot, aimed, fired, and hit his mark. With the precision of someone who'd been silently keeping score, he launched into a fiery critique of the show's glaring bias, tearing into what he described as its relentless, one-sided echo chamber. It wasn't just a clash of opinions, it was a full-on reckoning. Known for his razor-sharp wit and a style that dances somewhere between provocateur and satirist, Gutfeld let loose with unfiltered candor. His focus zeroed in on Sunny Hostin, who had attempted to steer the conversation back into familiar territory, the usual Trump critiques and political grandstanding. But Greg wasn't playing along, not today. While Sunny, often seen as the show's voice of moral reason, tried to interrupt, Greg plowed ahead, his words slicing through the polite TV veneer. He accused the panel of hypocrisy, of willfully ignoring pressing national issues in favor of manufactured outrage designed to stoke division and chase ratings. This isn't a debate, he seemed to imply. It's a performance, Gutfeld didn't simply oppose their viewpoints. He challenged the foundation of the conversation itself. He called out what he described as the panel's habit of muting dissenting voices while peddling narratives dressed up as virtue. To him, it wasn't just ideological bias. It was intellectual dishonesty, hiding behind the mask of daytime civility. In that moment, Greg wasn't just a commentator. He was a disruptor, intent on pulling back the curtain and asking a question. Many viewers have wondered, when did discussion die? And who replaced it with scripted outrage?
So I learned that the cicadas are coming.
Cicadas.
Cicadas.
Although I love
for the first time in
cicada.
No.
for the first time in many years.
No,
And so-
every 17 years this happens.
well, that's not what I read, but maybe but all those things together would maybe lead one to believe that either climate change exists,
That's more
or
the
something
point.
is really
Except
going
Earth is
on.
returning. Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground. It can't. I don't think that's.
It happens, and the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen, and they actually can say when these things are going to happen.
Amazing. Oh. That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years. They're turning on me. So that makes Sunny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull. All right, Kat, did you ever see such a group? It's amazing how Joy and Whoopi became the smart ones.
For me, the most shocking thing about the conversation was how truly boring it was.
From the instant Greg Gutfeld began to speak, the shift in the studio atmosphere was unmistakable. Sunny Hostin stiffened, just slightly, but enough to betray that she wasn't prepared for what was coming. She was accustomed to passionate discussions, sure, but not this kind of direct, unapologetic, cut-through-the-noise critique, especially when it was aimed squarely at the View itself. The air grew heavier with each pointed remark Greg delivered. He didn't just take issue with the show's content, he took a wrecking ball to its credibility. What followed wasn't just a disagreement, it was a confrontation. He challenged the very premise of The View's self-proclaimed mission, to be a space for diverse, thoughtful discourse. Instead, he painted it as a tightly controlled echo chamber, echoing only one frequency: progressive orthodoxy. And the timing of it all couldn't have been more compelling. For years, The View had branded itself as a platform for balanced conversation, a roundtable where different perspectives clashed and coexisted. But in that moment, Greg Gutfeld exposed what he saw as a carefully curated illusion. His words landed like punches in a prize fight, sharp, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. Hostin and her co-hosts scrambled to recalibrate. They attempted to shift the narrative back into familiar territory, to reclaim control, to reframe the moment. But Greg wasn't giving an inch. He leaned in, metaphorically and verbally, calling them out for what he described as a pattern of silencing conservative voices and refusing to engage with challenging viewpoints. He didn't just accuse The View of ideological bias. He argued that it was actively deepening America's political divide. Rather than bridging differences, he said, the show was entrenching them, choosing to cancel dissent instead of confronting it. He painted a picture of a media space more concerned with applause lines than authentic dialogue. What followed was television at its most chaotic and raw, a volley of voices, Sonny and Greg speaking over each other, trading jabs in a verbal tug-of-war. But even amid the noise, it was clear Greg had seized the upper hand. His critiques landed with precision, while Hostin's rebuttals felt more reactive, less grounded in conviction, more in defense. For once, the familiar script was flipped, and in a space dominated by predictable political talking points, that unpredictability made it all the more riveting.
They're like, well, the cicadas, they're cicadas. Okay, but it was like every 100 years. No, it's every 17 years. Do you know how many Emmys this show has? 31.
31 Emmys?
This show has 31. I mean, I'd hate to see the conversations that don't make headlines. What?
And we don't have a single
Not a
Emmy.
single
We don't
one.
Have what does that tell you about the Emmys, Kat? Yes, thank you, Mr. Boo. Give that man a free cup of water. Charlie, are these women bad for women?
They're bad for more than just women. The whole discussion about climate change drives me nuts because it does not exist. But the only reason I've come to love it is because of the characters that have gotten themselves involved. I mean, just a couple of weeks ago when I was on the show, we were talking about the snowboarder who testified before Congress. Remember, he was like the guy who was like, oh, bro, like, I think that there's climate change. And he had no idea what he was talking about. That was great. And then Greta Thunberg, who I have grown to be very fond of because she continually makes a mockery of herself. She was arrested not once but twice this past weekend. And now Sunny Hostin throwing her hat in the ring, claiming that these naturally recurring events such as earthquakes, which, by the way, I did my research. The first one was in 1831 BC, saying that they stem from climate change or something.
Yeah.
And I know she was just dying when she said something. She wanted to say racism. Dying to say that.
Yeah, it was either going to be racism or Trump, but then she...
What unfolded wasn't just a heated exchange. It was a full-blown unraveling of the double standards and selective outrage that have become all too familiar in mainstream media. As the live broadcast rolled on, the atmosphere in the studio shifted, and so did the audience's pulse. You could almost feel the collective intake of breath. Online, social media exploded. Comment threads and timelines were flooded with reactions. Many viewers applauded Greg Gutfeld for saying what they had long been thinking. The View wasn't offering dialogue. It was delivering dogma. Greg's message cut through the noise with startling clarity. He didn't just call out the show's hypocrisy. He held up a mirror to the media at large, reflecting the cracks in a system that claims to value open discourse, but often rewards conformity. He highlighted the ease with which dissenting voices were demonized, while those parroting approved narratives were welcomed with open arms. It was the kind of uncomfortable truth that's hard to unhear once it's said out loud. And Greg? He didn't blink. The fallout came fast. The View made a quiet attempt to downplay the clash, moving swiftly to shift focus back to more familiar, less volatile topics. But it was too late. The moment had landed, and it landed hard. Greg had poked a hole in the carefully polished image the show had built, revealing a vulnerability they couldn't simply gloss over with rehearsed smiles and polished transitions. For years, The View had managed to maintain a steady rhythm of predictable segments and recycled political commentary. But Greg's appearance threw off that rhythm like a skipped beat in a song everyone thought they knew by heart. His critique didn't just challenge the panel. It spoke to a broader audience who'd long felt pushed to the margins, unseen, and unheard. He didn't just confront The View, he gave a voice to the millions who had grown tired of being written off as outsiders in conversations they, too, had every right to be part of.